Some folks are very surprised at Hasan having a suit, and I'm glad I could amaze people so easily. The rest of the day ought to be easy. I always tell people it's really hard. The starting is always the hard part for me, trying to figure out where to move to. I wanted to show you my boys. My two sons and then my nephews. And I show them because I take a lot of pride in the fact that there are these crazy young men coming up, and there's some opportunity to make their lives better than my life was as a young person. Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Juvenile Justice for almost a year now, and I'm still trying to get used to that and excited about it and really concerned and frightened at the same time. Some of y'all might know what I mean. I'm a lawyer by training. I served as SAG chair for our advisory board for 10 years. I served as vice chair of the Federal Advisory Commission, the FACJ, for 3 years, and had the opportunity to do incredible, wonderful work with many of you and lots of your states around issues that we see as important issues. And I'm very proud of that work. I'm a graduate of Berea College, and so is Ms. Coleman from OJJDP, and I told her she keep acting up, we're going to tell stories about college. I'm an actor also. I tour a couple one-man shows nationally, telling the story of African Americans in American history and place and time, some of the challenges that we historically have overcome together that we don't talk about and celebrate often. But when I was a kid, things were great. I remember, it's like all kids, it was that moment in life where everything was possible, where people would look at you and say, "Oh, look at him, he's beating on that doll, he's going to be a carpenter. Look at him, he's right so terrible, he's going to be a doctor. Look at him. I don't know what he's doing, but it's probably going to be something." You know, I was that kid with potential. I had my family and the people that cared about me, a community that held me up. But eventually, people started telling me that I had to get more real, that everybody's dream wasn't going to be the same, that there were things that I couldn't expect. You know, I had this laundry list of cards. You know, I was a black male child from the inner city. When I was 6 years old, my parents divorced. My sister and I walked in on my dad choking my mom out on the couch. We grew up on welfare, living in the hood. You know, at the beginning of the month, Mom used to give us dollar bill food stamps. And y'all remember dollar bill food stamps? Brown food stamp dollar bills. Mom used to give each of us a dollar bill food stamp at the beginning of the month, and every morning we go to the corner store and buy 5 cents worth of candy, because back in the day, you could buy 5 pieces of candy for 5 cents. You used to call it penny candy for a reason, right? Y'all remember that? And we buy 5 cents worth of candy, they'd have to give us cash back, and so at the beginning of the month, we would go to school jingling. We'd have 95-cent hard, cold cash in our pocket, and we could pretend to be like all the other kids. By the end of the month, things got a little harder. Maybe we didn't always get those opportunities. In kindergarten, my teacher used to lock me in the code room because at 6 years old, they already decided that whatever I was becoming wasn't worth their time, their energy, their passion. Lucky for me, my mama told me that wherever you find yourself in a place, you need to figure out why you're there and how you get out. So in kindergarten, in the code room, after my day number 2, I looked around and realized that the code room was where everybody kept their lunch boxes. And since it was close to the end of the month and we wasn't getting all that we was getting at the beginning of the month, I thought this was a perfect opportunity to exercise my choice. And after a couple of days of Susie not having peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and Johnny not having his fruit cup, the teacher decided they had to put me back in the classroom so they could keep an eye on me. But put me back in the classroom actually put me back in the zone because I'm an oral learner. Because of my dyslexia, my ADHD, I don't learn the way other kids do, but I learn in association. And so when they put me back in the classroom to keep an eye on that bad kid, they actually put me back in the zone and gave me an opportunity that I didn't have. Isolation was the thing that was killing me. And so I struggled, and by 11 years old, I'd gotten arrested and running with some guys. We were doing some B&Es, and we were doing some assaults, and we were doing some questionable activities. And I could justify it all, because the world had only shown me a couple of things, a few options, a couple of possibilities, and so I was just taking what the world told me I had to take before it took back. Then I started alternative school in the 8th grade, and it was a special alternative school. It wasn't that kind of place where you just throw all the, well, sometimes you throw all the bad people, but it was a whole range of people here. It was a very unique institution. There were affluent kids from way out in Sandy Springs, Georgia, you know, that lived in big houses, who had learning challenges, and there were goth kids and good old boys and punk rockers and some of us, you know, and so it was an interesting place. But what I found most interesting about it is that the philosophy of the school was different. When I went to the school, the administrator had me in her office one day. She said, I was ready for the speech. I know who you are. I know what you've been doing, and I'm waiting for you to mess up so I can get you out of here. Because that's what I usually heard. And I was like, okay, we can probably take care of this by lunch, get everybody back on the agenda. But instead, she said something different. She said, I know who you are, and I want to tell you that I believe you can be anything and do anything, and all you can do is make me a liar. And I said, you know I'm the other kid, right? She said, I know who you are, and all you can do is prove me wrong. It's a powerful statement. It's a statement that we aren't willing to give out very often now, are we? Because we always tell people you have to earn our respect. You have to show me you deserve. When the truth is, most of our young people come from places in their lives where they don't have the luxury of trusting forward, and they don't trust anybody that they don't know. And we tell them to trust us, but we don't trust them. When we start to put that trust forward model, start to tell them what we see of them, the dreams and possibilities up front, then we have something to hold them to instead of something for them to rebel against. If I know that you're terrible, if I know that you're a monster, then you're probably going to prove me right. And if I know that you could be great, you might try to prove me right. And so a lot of it was my attitude. When I got to this alternative school, it gave me some opportunity to look at myself differently. And, of course, after 5 years in that alternative school, I eventually got expelled. And that's a whole long story that I'm not going to get into, but I got my GED after that, and I was still trying to figure it out. My brothers, Derek and Sean, my best friends in the world, I want you to know them because I want you to understand that their story is deeply connected to mine. My brother Derek is in the middle with the cane go on. Derek is doing life with a minimum of 25. My brother Sean on the end is doing 57 years. And I want you to know this because this is the challenge. This is sometimes where things fall apart. You ever heard that song by Bill Withers, Lean on Me? You know how it goes? Sometimes in our lives, help me out. We all have pain. Come on, you know it. We all have sorrow. You know it. But if we are wise, wave your hands. We know that there's always tomorrow. Anyway, see, that was a song on the radio the other day. I got the news about my cousin. I was at home by myself, had the radio turned up kind of loud, and I guess I was trying to sing, and the phone rang. Hello, I said, but nobody answered. Hello, I said a bit louder, and this voice starts screaming. He's dead, Haas. They killed Bebe. And the world starts spinning, me trying to sit down before I fall with this voice echoing through my soul. They killed Bebe, and Bill is on the radio singing, call me when you need a friend. See, Bebe was my cousin, about the same age as my youngest brother, Tony, and he was dead. The first of my generation to go down like that. Now, he wasn't the last, and he wasn't the youngest. He just got to be the first. Baby was a father at 16, used to run the streets. We all ran the streets, but he knew how to laugh at himself. You got to know how to laugh at yourself if you hope to survive those streets. So I go home for the funeral. And the boy who killed my cousin is already out of jail. And that's when me and mine start talking like it's time to go play, you know. It's time to go play judge, and it's time to go play jury, and it's time to go play executioner. And that's when it hits me. This is what it's all about. Let emotions drive you to the edge of madness, holding on so tight and so long that it eats you from the inside, and it builds and it builds, and then blam! You can't help but go off like a gun. And somewhere another child sits in a room waiting for a door that ain't never going to open again. And somewhere another mother sits by a phone she know ain't never going to ring. And somewhere a whole family, a whole community gets changed again, forever. And that is not how I want to make it to the other side, see. So I start trying real hard not to let other people push my buttons. Let other people make me do things, but sometimes I still get so damn mad I can't see. Then that song will pop into the back of my head. Sometimes I pick up the phone, I push the start button, I say, hello. I guess I'm talking to the other side. I say, I miss you, baby. And I miss you, Stevie. Man, I miss JoJo. See, JoJo was only 14 when they shot him in the head. I say, I miss you, and I will never forget you, and thanks for listening, and I wish I had a chance to return the favor. I'll talk to you again real soon. Just keep watching my back. Now, the whole time, it's that song. It never stops playing in the back of my head. I'm right up the road, and I'll share your load if you just call me. Yeah, I remember that song because now that's Bebe's song. The work that we do, the challenges we face, the possibility of what comes next are enormous. We have, as a nation, been moving forward and backward at the same time for a long time, trying to figure out how we best serve those who have not been served. And the challenge for us always is to do great work in hopes that there might be some return. But one of the things that I've really come to fear lately in my own work and the work that I have a chance to see around the country is that we're afraid to move forward because we're afraid of failing. We're afraid to do something because we're afraid it might be the wrong something. You get that feeling sometimes? We find ourselves stagnant because we don't want to make a false move, a misstep. And sometimes the big frustration comes, especially when we look at DMC, but across the spectrum of juvenile justice, because sometimes we just have to do something and then we have to make it the right something. We got the data, we got the research, we got the analysis. And sometimes we have to stop looking at the paper and we have to stand up and we have to walk outside and we have to make something live. And it might not be the right something, and it might go flat and it might break off and it might not reach the conclusion you wanted, but we don't know that until we actually go out and do something. And this is where we are. The crux of our new place in this challenge, in this fight, in this battle is that we have to finally stop crunching numbers, because we've been doing it. I mean, I've been working in juvenile justice and have been around the same places y'all been around for a long time. And every year we come back with the same results. And somebody says, well, I'm going to need more data. and sometimes the only way you get more data is to take what you have and you go out and you put it to the test, so you can come back and say, well, yeah, it actually did work. So now what we're going to do, we can research and do some data on what we have done, not on what we've been doing. And I'm just saying, I'm going to get back on task, but I wanted to let you know that this is the challenge that I see. If I cannot see myself as a valuable contributor to the past of this nation, how could I ever imagine I'd be valuable to its future? When I was 9 years old in the third grade, I had a teacher came into class one day with our new social studies history books. She said, this is the book. Boom, huge tome. This is the story of a nation of great people. This is the place where all of our heroes live, she said, the ones that make us important, that make us a world leader, that make us valuable. And I was excited. I started going through that book. I was like, oh, here we go now. Watch out. Chapter 1, oh, that's not me. Chapter 2, oh, that's not me. Chapter 5, that don't look like me. Chapter 7, wait a minute. I finally got to that one chapter on American slavery. There was a picture of a black man with a yoke around his neck and a scarred back from whippings, and the caption below said, the American Negro, comma, slave, period. Now, when you ask yourself what a child believes their worth is, it can easily be measured in how they see themselves reflected in the world around them. And at 9 years old, the lesson to me was really clear. You have never been more than a commodity here. How could you ever hope to be more? It's no coincidence that in the third grade, I stopped saying the Pledge of Allegiance every morning before class. And I stopped sitting after lunch when the teacher read verses from the Bible. And I started extorting my friends because my lesson was that you're going to have to take what you can get till somebody finally takes it back. I checked out in the third grade because the message to me was clear. You have no place The young people that we are trying to reclaim, that we serve as best we can, many of them come from a place of zero value because they do not know that there's more to their story than what happened one generation ago. They do not know that our story as a nation has been so intrinsically, so deeply connected from its origin that there are people who sacrifice for them to have the opportunity to do and dream as much as anybody else. And they don't understand this, and mostly we don't understand it. One of the challenges we have is that we have to see this thing differently. I told you I was an actor to a couple one-man shows, and I tell the story of African Americans here that we don't know. Stories like York, the Lewis and Clark expedition. How many of y'all know who York is? Outstanding. York was a member of the Lewis and Clark expedition. He was there from start to finish. Every triumph, every trial, every struggle, every fight, he stood side by side with those people we do know, Lewis and Clark. But he wasn't alone. There were half a dozen Indian, French guides. There was a young Indian woman named Sacagawea. There were scouts and trappers. There were poor men and rich men. There were women and men. All of this incredible, interesting group of people who 200 years ago struggled to cross the continent overland and only managed to lose one person over the course of 4 years. Now, the reason that story is important to me is because once I started to learn and understand that story, I started to believe that what happened 20 years ago, what happened 30 years ago, and what happened 40 years ago with the Civil Rights Movement wasn't the first time somebody stood up and stood forward. I had a chance to understand for myself that there was value in my presence here in this country because people who look like me stood next to people who look like you, who talked different languages and moved in different worlds, but they stood together. It gave me a chance to evaluate finally who I was to a nation so that I could decide what I wanted to be to a nation. The conversation that we are not having with our young people outside of our analysis of data and the work that we're doing at this level in the head is at this level. We are not doing the programming to show our young people, not just Black, not just Latino, not just Asian, to show all of our young people how deeply connected we've been, how every success we as a nation have achieved, we've achieved in spite of our differences, or maybe because of it. We've managed to do things like in World War II, have this incredible range of soldiers, men and women who stepped forward to do things. You ever heard of the 442nd Go for Broke Battalion? It's an Asian South Pacific Island unit, the most highly decorated unit of the war, more Purple Hearts than any. Many of them were Japanese descendants who couldn't serve at first, who fought to serve, but their record of sacrifice is greater than any other unit. We've all heard of Tuskegee Airmen, and we've heard about the Navajo Code Talkers. Sometimes we don't look at our risk. You know, I was doing this research and I found out that there were several 100,000 Hispanics, Latino Americans serving in World War II. And we talk about this idea that people were recently engaged, but the truth is we have all been engaged historically in defending what we believe to be our nation. 200 years ago, Lewis and Clark went to the end of the world. That's Oregon for you folks from Oregon. They went to the end of the world, and at the end of the world, at Fort Clatsop, when they finished their journey, got to the ocean, they decided to set a vote. They decided that everybody would vote and decide where they would winter before they started back to civilization. They let everybody vote. That means the young Indian woman, Sacagawea, voted. That means the Black slave, enslaved man York voted. That means the Indian guides voted. That means the poor people who didn't own land, that even when they were back in civilization, couldn't vote because you had to be rich and landed. You had to be a gentleman in order to vote, aristocracy. Everybody voted. Some say that might be the first real democratic process that this nation engaged in, where everybody who was there stepped forward. Now, the irony is, it would be another 60 years before the end of slavery and the 13th Amendment would be signed into law. It would be another 100 years before Native Americans were even recognized as American citizens. It would be another 120 years before the women's suffrage movement got enough strength and force to create and push the vote for all citizens. And so 200 years ago at the edge of the world, they did this thing because nobody was watching. but it was the right thing. They proved everything about our declaration. Remember that piece of paper? The declaration? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they, I always think that's important, that they, these men, these individuals are endowed by their creator, not by my creator, not by Joe's creator. They're endowed by their own creator with certain unalienable rights, unalienable, unable to be taken away. That among those rights, but not limited to, among those rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think that's really important too, because we get twisted. I see people comment all the time on our life, liberty, and happiness, the rights that we have, and that's not what it said, is it? It said life, liberty, and what? The pursuit of happiness. Is that a guarantee of happiness? No, it's just the fact that we have a right to chase happiness down and tie that sucker up in the corner if we can catch him. But see, that's what we're missing. We're missing that piece of it because in our work, we are not here to guarantee justice, to guarantee success, to guarantee anything. We are here to create the possibility. Your job is to make sure that every child who is brave enough to dream big can actually run big. They don't have to catch it. And if they don't catch it, you don't have to feel bad about it. And this is where we get caught up. That's the paralysis of guilt. We feel like we don't achieve our work if we just convince systems to change, because some young people still get caught up. And of course, the flip-flop goes, people say, well, if you change the system and some young people still get caught up, then maybe it's not a good system. I made it out, but my brothers didn't. And people say, well, they was hearing the same thing you heard, and if they didn't make it, then that means that there's no formula here. I always say, well, do doctors' kids always go on to become doctors? No. Even when they get all the same love and the same nurturing, they choose other paths, and sometimes they end up as one of our kids, don't they? There are no guarantees. And the thing that hamstrings us the most in this work right now is that we are fearful of failing so much that we forget that we are not working toward an outcome. We are working on a process. Our job is to create the ability for all of those who are brave enough to believe they don't have to be what they've been, that they don't have to be what they've been told, have the opportunity to race and chase and to push and to fight and to struggle to prove that they can be something different. And that's all you're beholden to. You are not responsible for the outcome, and you don't get to take credit for the successes, right? So why do you take blame for the failures? I'm just saying. My brother Sean, when he was 13 years old, I came home one day and he had taken apart a Walkman. Fortunately, y'all know what a Walkman is. I started talking to a group of kids once and I said the word Walkman and everybody started looking at me. They were like, a Walkman. So he had taken apart an old Walkman and a broken telephone we had in our room. And he had this thing wired around his head and tied up, and he was talking. He was chilling in the corner. Sean's street name was Cass, Casanova Lover. He said, yo, Cass, what you doing? Yo, I'm talking to my girl, man. That's what he said. He always had his cool little voice, right? I said, you ain't talking to nobody. You got wires tied around your head. So I took it from him, and I grabbed it. I said, hello? Hello? I heard someone on the other side. I said, oh, snap. I said, where'd you get this, man? He says, oh, man, I was just messing around, and I found that old Walkman, and I found that, and I was just messing around. I said, you made this? He said, well, yeah, I was just putting stuff together, and I opened them up, and I said, you made this? He said, well, yeah, I was just, I said, you made this? He said, yes. I said, man, you could be one of those electronic guys. We didn't have Geek Squad back in the day, right? This is the 80s. The best I knew was that electronics, and he just started laughing. He said, no, man, this is just what I do at the house when we're taking it easy. Ain't nobody gonna let me do this in the real world. That's what we're fighting. Every day I replay that in the back of my head because I know personally that right there is where I lost one of the most intelligent men that I've ever known. Right there is the hopelessness, is the self-hate, is the I don't see me nowhere, so I can't imagine me nowhere syndrome that drives this work right here. In order for us to get something different, we're going to have to start working a little differently on the problem. It's great for us to keep talking about it, but we're going to have to start rebuilding. emotional connectedness, rebuilding community, rebuilding programs that allow young people to dream way beyond where they stand right now so that they might be able to get there one day. Y'all know Spider-Man? This is what happens when you're ADHD. You get on the computer to do work, and a random search draws up a picture, and 3 hours later, you have no idea where you got to. But you go, but it was cool, you know? And I always tell people I jump around a lot, and sometimes it makes professionals nervous because they always diagnosing me in the audience, you know? It'd be like, Lord, this boy got this and this and that. So I know I got it, so you don't have to worry for me. Because I found myself once, somebody came up after I talked once, she said, I was so sad for you up there because you was just going all over the place. I said, don't be sad for me. She said, I know I'm going all over the place. Y'all just need to keep up, okay? You just worry about staying on track, okay? Because one of the things that I understood about myself early on, being all of those things, had my laundry list, is that I used to get mad a lot. When the teacher would ask me to read in class, when somebody would make fun of my disability, and, you know, I'd turn around, the teacher would be like, are we going to read this next chapter? I'm like, okay, who can I knock out? Whew, okay, I got to get out of here. Okay, got some choices. You know, people start moving their chairs away because it's reading time, and they know whoever's closest is going to get it. Because I'd rather be that crazy kid in the corner instead of that kid that can't read. And it took me a long time to get used to accept that this is who I was going to be. And again, one of the challenges our young people face is they don't have the ability sometimes to ask the question, to let you know what they need so that they can move forward. And so we have to challenge ourselves to get in there, to do some things differently. But I was talking about Spider-Man. I was thinking about Spider-Man when I was a kid. And remember when he was a kid and he got his powers and Uncle Ben told him, with great power there must come great responsibility. And I always thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And when I started thinking about it, though, I started to understand it differently, because what Uncle Ben was saying, that people with power have responsibility, but the rest of us don't. You know, superheroes got to save the world, but the rest of us, we can just let the world go to pot. Wait for somebody great to come up, somebody with a title. That's very convenient, because it allows us to absolve ourselves of responsibility very easily, to make it somebody else's problem, somebody with a title. And we have to be careful, because every hero has a weakness, and they usually lose that power. With us, maybe because you got unappointed, because somebody fired you, and we say, okay, now I don't have any responsibility. If all of your power comes from somebody anointing you, giving you some great blessing and rubbing elbows, then as soon as that goes away, so does your responsibility. But the truth of our work is that most of us didn't get here because somebody gave us a great title and we stepped up to it, but we stepped up to fill a need, and somebody recognized it and gave us a great title. We do this work because we know it has to be done, and instead of saying somebody ought to do this work, we have decided that we are what? Somebody. That we could be the person. My friend always says, well, if not me, somebody less qualified is going to try, so I may as well step up. So, you know, that's the attitude. And most of us who do this work understand that there are people who, you know, technically understand it, but they don't feel it. And if you don't feel it, if you don't understand that this is something that has to change, not should change, not might change, not could change, has to change for us to have better outcomes, then this ain't the work for you. We need to get somebody to sub in, somebody to tag you out. So I'm going to talk about my 5 rules, the 5 things that I think we need to do. Fight the insanity, carry faith and hope, allow time, forgive failure, and deserve victory. It's a real simple list. Insanity is really easy, right? We all know that principle. If you keep doing what you've been doing, what? Keep getting what you've been getting, right? 2 plus 2 is always, 2 plus 2 will never be 47. 2 plus 2 will never be 3 million. No matter how many times you push into the calculator, it's going to be 4. You can do a nice ritual dance around it. You can high five. You can write a couple notes about it, but you find that equal sign, it's still going to come out 4. The only way you get a different result is if you put something different in. And our work, the hard challenge is that this is what we've been for a while. We've been doing the same thing. Doing the same thing, doing the same thing. And we have done that. What are we going to do next? What's the next variable we're going to put in? Because the truth is, this isn't really the it. If it was just like this, we'd be okay. If it was a zero-sum game, we'd be all right if we were just staying even. But the truth is, we're not. I heard John Maxwell speak once, and he said something really deep. It was a business concept, but I love it because if you keep doing what you've been doing, Your competition gets better and you get worse results. So it's also a process of erosion. You don't just keep getting the same, you get worse results. And who's our competition? Gangs, teen marriage, teen pregnancies, youth violence, abuse, all those things that we know are direct results of us not getting this work done. If we want a different result, it's time for us to put something different in. It's time for us to step forward. It's time for us to believe enough to allow a change to happen. We got to take some risk. We know what we got to do. Sometimes we got to do it. It's going to offend people? Yeah. Every time I have a DMC conversation, every time we in Kentucky try to have a conversation with a judge or with a prosecutor, the first word comes out is what? Are you saying I'm a racist? No, we're not. We're saying that we all had the same problem of not knowing enough about our past to inform our future, but now that you know, tomorrow if you make the same decision, I will have to say you're a racist. I'm just saying, okay? If knowledge is power, and we have informed, if we show, because they demanded us do the same research 5 years in a row, right? If we finally come up and say, okay, well, we're done, it's time for us to do something. We got the data, so if you keep on doing what you've been doing, it's not an accident. It's not ignorance. It's not a mistake. It's not a system you inherited. It's you. It's us. It's a system. And so we have to start taking more risk. If we want a different result, we're going to have to put it out there. And we're going to have to stop apologizing for talking about these things that we as a nation have been afraid to talk about, because we cannot resolve them if we don't talk about them. Or maybe that's just me. We got to raise the bar. We have to push our entire community. We set expectations. We have to agitate. And the thing is, in order for us to get results, we're going to have to push the community to engage. We're going to have to do grassroots supports like back in the day. The reason I made it where I am is because people in the community decided that that boy needs some help. And they gave it to me. We need help. We need to go outside the lines of the folks that talk like us and understand data like us, and we need to go into the trenches with the people that are struggling with this every day who know what's going on, and we need to ask them what it is they need from us in order to bring that up to the next scale. There are programs out there, there are people out there, there are mentors and role models who are helping change lives, and we need to capitalize on them. We need to pull them up so that they are in the conversation with us. Faith and hope. Faith and hope are verbs to me. In fact, you really don't have faith or hope unless you do something with them, right? People talk about faith, a belief in something you can't see. We talk about our faith in these young people, but sometimes we don't act as if we believe they could be different. We don't act as if we believe there could be a transformation. We still hedging our bet, we holding back. Just in case we was wrong, we can say, well, I had a little doubt, because we don't want to be that person. But we got to put it out there. It takes action and takes courage to push it forward like that. I had a friend who used to always talk about his faith. Man, I have faith that the Lord's going to provide for me. I'm going to win the lottery. I'm waiting on my numbers to come in. I prayed about it. I said, JoJo, tomorrow we are going to buy you a lottery ticket, because I'm tired of hearing you talk about this. At least get a ticket, okay? At least. You can have all the faith in the world, but if you don't act on it, nothing happens. And hope is the same way. You have to actually do something with it. Faith is what allows us to step into this work, believing we can make a difference. Hope is what keeps us here until we make a difference. And we have to have those two. They pin us to this work. And hope is very powerful. And sometimes we have to carry it for other people. My mama carried hope for me. When my mama picked me up from the police station, I was 11 years old. It was one of those days that went bad early. And me and my buddies, there was 5 of us, we all got arrested, and so we were down there, and as moms came to pick us up, they were all moms, there was this whole diatribe, I'm going to let you go stay with your daddy, I'm going to let him take you away next time, I had to leave work early, I had to take 3 buses to get here, and so by the time my mom get there, I had this good speech. I was like, you don't understand, I'm a black man trying to survive, and I had a good speech. I was ready, because I was going to refute all that, because that's how you do it. And so when she showed up, I was ready, I was swole up, holding it in, ready. And she did the paperwork, and we started out, and I was, holding it in, turning blue, waiting for the fight, and we started back to the house. And she didn't say anything. And finally, I got brave enough to look over at her. And she was crying. And she looked over at me and she said, "Baby, if you could see what I see when I look at you, you would know how great you were." I couldn't do nothing with that. I sat there confused and trying to figure out, what is it? I mean, there are 1,000 people out there telling me every day that I'm a monster, I'm a thug, I'm a menace to society, I'm useless, I'm trash, I'm all these things, but she still sees something. Her having the courage to hold that for me when I couldn't was priceless. Because once I finally got brave enough to go looking for that guy she'd been talking about, he was right there in her eyes. And all of our kids don't have a mama like that, but they got us. They have us who can stand in, parentus and locus, right? I always thought that meant the crazy parents until I went to law school. And apparently it's just the parent who happens to be around, but maybe it's the loco too. Maybe they go together. But all of us have this ability. We can be that person. I mean, America's Promise tells us kids need somebody to believe in them unconditionally. Just one person makes a difference. And we could be that person. We could be the one that chooses not to confirm everything about who they have been and actually hold up the possibility of who they could be. And maybe they won't ever see it. And we don't lose any sleep. We don't get charged or filed for it. But maybe they could. Maybe it's possible because somebody told them they could be different, they would actually try. And if they actually tried, it's possible they could succeed one day. When I got expelled from college, I mentioned that, right? No, I got expelled from college twice. It took work, but I managed to get it done. Now, the second time I got expelled from college, the first time I got expelled, I left, went home, got into some issues, and joined the Army. It just made sense to me. I was like, if I'm going to have people shooting at me, I should get paid for it. It was cost-benefit analysis, and I got 40 guys with me with machine guns. This I like, okay? But when I was in the Army, I had to make some choices and decisions about who I wanted to be. When I came out, I went back to school, the same school, stayed one semester, got kicked out again. I was short tracking, okay? Trying to get it all in really quick. When I got expelled that time, it was very embarrassing, a terrible situation. Everybody laughed at me, and I was that guy. Man, he got it. That was quick. And so when I showed up a year later, hey, I want to come back to school, they were like, you got to be kidding me. And I said, well, no, I don't. But when I got expelled that last time, it was so painful to me that I started to believe that maybe the people that had been telling me I was who I was were right, and maybe I was the fool for believing those few people who kept telling me I could be great. And so I made up my mind to go back home and to handle my business and keep my brothers safe until somebody bigger, better, faster, stronger had a bigger gun come take me out. And I had my expulsion papers in my hands, and I walked across campus to my mailbox, and in my mailbox was this bandana. If you saw my pictures earlier, you saw that I always had a bandana on. On the outside of the plastic was written these words: inevitable victory for Hasan with love, Mom. I still have this headband. It's in my office in Frankfurt right now. I don't know why I didn't open it up, but for some reason it seemed like it was a moment for me. And I sat on the wall outside the mailbox, and I looked at this message, and I looked at my expulsion papers. The million people who told me that I was never going to be more than I've been, and the few people who told me if I was brave enough to dream it, I could still get it. And I came to the conclusion that this isn't a simple electorate. It's not one vote, one person. We get to decide who's casting votes on our board. We get to decide who has the influence for us. I don't have to take that 1 million voices. If I just got 2 and I'm okay with that, then I can run with it. And so I decided that I was going to try again because my mama said I could, and that was good enough for me. Because somebody was brave enough to believe in me in spite of all the empirical evidence. I was brave enough to believe in myself. The work that we do is important, valuable work because we create possibility where other people have given up even seeing chance. We can do this. Now, when I started law school, I had a vocational rehab counselor. And she was great. She was very empathetic. She loved people and she loved serving people. And she sat me down in her office and she said, Hasan, baby, you have failed a lot. And if I support you going to law school, I am afraid that it is going to be yet another failure in your long history of failure. I mean, from kindergarten to here. And I cannot be responsible for supporting you going out there to fail again, so I can't support you going to law school. I'll help you get into a program. You can learn to do something with your hands, meaningful work, make you proud. And I sat there looking at this woman who was almost crying. She was so empathetic and so concerned with my life to this point and how hard it had been. And I was so angry. I was so angry that she thought that her best service to me was to help me trim my dreams down to something manageable. That her best gift to me would to convince me that I should not be able to dream as great as other people. That it could be dangerous for me and that she was keeping me safe from this crazy world of failure that I'd encountered my whole life. And how dare she do that? It's not our job to keep people safe from the possibility of falling. It's our job to make sure if they fall, they know they can get back up and start walking again. And we have to understand that differently than we have, because if we keep doing what we've been doing, we're going to keep getting what we've been getting. It's time for us to push the buttons a little different. It's time for us to try some things. Excuse me. For those of us who choose this work, hope is mandatory. We got to have it because that's what we're doing. We're giving hope. We can't give it if we don't have it. If you don't believe the kids can change, they ain't going to believe you when you say they can. They know game. They've been hustling their whole life. You can't hustle them. It's hard. Trust me. Optimism has no cost. You ever heard that saying, a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle? Isn't that deep? A candle loses nothing by lighting another candle, but it multiplies the light and divides the darkness. All we're doing is giving the possibility. We're not beholden to the outcome, just that we create a space where they have the chance, if they're brave enough, to try it. Time is necessary. We got to push it. We want everything to happen right now. We want results right now. We need to take a deep breath. There were people who looked at me and said, my favorite thing was, I need one more second chance. Just one more second chance. And I just kept on saying, one more, this is your 8th second chance. I know, but I am almost there. We have to be able to do this. It takes time. We didn't get in this mess overnight. We're not going to solve it overnight. So we're going to have to be sympathetic and empathetic to the possibility that it's going to take continued resources and work to make things happen. Our work is like wrestling an 800-pound gorilla. I mean, it just gets on you. People ask me all the time, when is it okay to finally quit? When is it okay to stop trying? When is it okay to stop pushing? When working with kids, I always say, well, when would you think it was okay if you were the kid in that position? Then I said, oh, no, because most people be like, well, eventually I'll say, give up on me. I said, what if it was your child? When would it be okay for somebody to stop trying to get your child where you think they ought to be? Maybe that's the test we ought to do. It's the 800-pound gorilla. When you fight an 800-pound gorilla, you don't stop when you get tired. You stop when the gorilla get tired. And this gorilla ain't tired. So if we got to take a couple extra, caffeine shots, we got to do some extra work, but we have to fight this thing until we finally get it under control. There's no timetable, but there is urgency, and there's a difference. And we have to keep moving and pushing it. It's not enough that we do our best, Winston Churchill said. Sometimes we have to do what is required. We got to do what's necessary. Forgiveness is a huge piece of our work. Especially when we look at DMC, we get caught up in the conversation of past wrongs. That's where it usually breaks down. Slavery, Jim Crow, some people, segregation, internment. And I always say, well, first, I don't know anybody that was alive at that time. So I got nobody I can point my finger at right away. The rest of us have inherited a failed system. The sooner we can release ourselves from the guilt of that system, the sooner we can get on to the work of repairing the system. We have to forgive ourselves for what didn't happen. All the work we've been doing for the last 10 years should have been done 10 years ago. All the work we've been doing, the struggle to make sure that everybody means everybody should have been done way before we got to this point. But it wasn't. So we can sit around complaining about it for 10 more years, or what? We can do the work. Right? Chinese proverb says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. I always thought that was great advice, Boy, if you'd have done this 20 years ago, you'd be in good shape right now. You'd be great. Everything would be perfect. The rest of that says the second best time is right now. The only immutable characteristic we have left is the past. Can't change it, can't alter it, can't do one of those cool things like Michael J. Fox and go back and mess it up. It's immutable, unable to be changed. Used to be, they said that sex and color was immutable, right? Race and gender, but now we know better. We know men become women, women become men. People get darker, people get lighter. I ain't gonna call no names, y'all know what I'm talking about. All right, I'm just saying. But the one thing we know, the only immutable characteristic, the one that cannot be changed, is the past. We have been where we've been, and right now we can decide where we're going. 20 years ago, we'd have a perfect tree right now. Wouldn't it be a shame if in 20 years we regret that we didn't start planting seeds today? Winston Churchill is my personal hero. I found this poster, him during World War II, deserved victory, and I was like, man, that is it. World War II, Great Britain was being decimated by the German war machine. The Germans had more planes, more bombs, more guns, more boots on the ground. They were walking across Europe, destroying everything. The Nazi war machine was in full flare. Great Britain was right there, this little bitty island, and they were like, y'all just need to give up. And he was like, no, I don't think so. He said, every man, every woman, every child, every person on this island will stand up and we will fight. And the only way you take this land is if we are not standing here. We will deserve victory. Whether we get it or not is a whole different circumstance. But all those who watch and see this take place will know that we deserve to win. That's the criteria for us. Not the outcome, not whether we do win, but if the process that we lead ourselves on, we know we should have won. We know that we are doing things in a way every day that we should have victories every day, that we should be reclaiming lives, we should be rebuilding futures. And there'll be days when we lose. But because we know we put everything in, we didn't hold anything back, we will be able to get up the next day and we will charge right back in. Deserving victory is about how we carry out the battle, not what the outcome is. Again, we don't have responsibility for the end, just for the in between. Deserving victory is, some of y'all like basketball and football. You got those teams that you know they play hard all season and you know they're going to be at the championship. And for some crazy reason, some other team that you ain't even heard of before show up and knock them out. They got lucky, but on that one day, they stepped their game up to some incredible level. It's not that your team was terrible, but somebody had to be more great that day. And the next season, click, you right back in there because you know last year they should have been there. And so you still back them up. That's the attitude. If we put everything in, we don't feel guilty about the outcome because we know it's not because we didn't do everything in our power. Somebody else that day had a little more power, a little more influence, a little more ability to make somebody believe or not. And we can go back to our work. We can continue to push. Believe and act as if it were impossible to fail. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe once said, if you treat a man as he is, he will remain as he is. But if you treat a man as he can and he should be, he will become as he can and should be. The work that we are about is not rehabilitation, putting them back to where they were. We're trying to put them where they should have been. We're trying to put them where if all things were equal and the world was right, they would have been in the first place, absent all of the drama, absent all of the fear, absent all of the pain that caused them to move and to choose differently. We have that ability. We have that responsibility. We have some chances to change lives dramatically. And we are absolutely free from the responsibility of making sure every life changes dramatically. We just get to put it out there and make the work happen for everybody and let them decide whether they are ready to pursue their happiness or not. But if they are ready, we will set the tools, we will set the mark, we will set the race so that if they're ready to run, they can. That's all we can be held up for. That's all our responsibility. People, Derek and Sean and me made a lot of hard choices. I breathed my air into Derek's lungs and kept his heart beating on the side of the road for 10 minutes once. I carried Sean a quarter of a mile with hypothermia and shock. I would have killed for them. I would have died for them. But I couldn't live for them. People ask me all the time, they say, well, how do you get there from here to from that place? And for a long time, I always said, well, you know, in the last year, people have pushed me there's always a moment. I met a man just last month at a conference I was speaking at. He came up to me in a wheelchair, and he said, Hasan, what is your birth date? I said, my birthday is December. He's, no. What is your birth date? I said, what do you mean? What is the day you finally understood that your life had value? I said, whoa. And I said, well, it was a night in 1987. I went home to visit my brothers, and we had this ritual where before I could go out and hang out with them, I had to fight each one of them, full contact, 20 minutes, no holds barred, because they had to be sure that college had not ruined me. You know, my brother Sean called me an egghead college boy, and he said, you know, we just got to make sure that something go wrong. You ain't the guy in the corner screaming, brother. So I would have to prove myself that I hadn't gone soft and had the ability to respond appropriately in the right environment. And this was just my ritual every time I went back home. And this time I went back and see, I'd gone off to college and I'd gotten a theater, you know, and then I was a cheerleader. A lot of people don't, right? So my brothers, like, they had all kinds of questions. There were a whole lot of questions for the real hard, tough dude from the hood, okay? And so they had to be thoroughly convinced that brother was ready to handle his business. And so this was our ritual. And so this one night, I went home and we'd done our dance, and they were convinced I could handle myself, and we started out. We were going to find this club. My father was a reggae singer. He just started this band, and we laughed because he couldn't sing that well, you know. But apparently when you get a whole band together, it changes, but, you know. So we were going to go check out this party and this club. And we're in this old pickup truck, and we drive around, can't find the club. And so we pulled into the parking lot of this gas station to think about it. We didn't ask. We could have just went inside, which I think now, you know, but guys don't do that. So we sat there thinking about it. And while we're sitting there, this, you know, we feel this bass starts building. Doo, 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 doo. A couple seconds later, this old hoopty rolls into the parking lot, right? Sitting low, tinted windows. Pulls in, parks, and these 6 brothers roll out. And they looking hard. And they are owning everything, right? And they look over at us, and Derek says, man, you see the way they're looking at us? And I'm like, no, man, I'm just trying to figure out what this club is, right? But Derek saw something. So he puts the truck in drive and goes in, he parks their car, blocks their car in, right? And so they all start rolling back out the store. So I'm here at the door. Sean's in the middle, and Derek's driving. So I'm right here going, it's okay, guys. We're just trying to find this club. Maybe y'all can help us out. This is the college Hasan, right? You know, I'm a college student. I can talk to people now, right? And, you know, I'm like, oh, this is good. You know, we all just help us figure out the club. And they start going off. And so Derek is popping off back and forth to him. And I'm like, yo, D, we can just drive anytime, man. And they just going about, I'm like the guy, the invisible man right here. And so they're popping off, and finally Derek gets mad, and he taps the 38. He keeps on the dashboard just to let them know, if you're going for stupid, we are stupid, waiting on you. But instead of this guy having the natural reaction, he escalates. Man, you must be out of your mind. I don't, a little 38 man on. And so they go together. And I'm still sitting here trying to orchestrate this, keep all the balls in the air. And I'm telling Derek, man, let's just drive. God, we just trying to find this club. And Sean is just quiet. He only got 2 gears. He got neutral, he got overdrive. And I can feel his body heat rising. So I say, Sean, man, it's cool, man. Derek, why don't we just drive, God? We're just trying to get out of here. I'm just trying to get us all out of here, away from this right now, because I know where we're going, and I know that it's not where I want to be, because there's about 1 million people lined up waiting to say, see, I told you. Waiting to say, I knew you was eventually going to show your real stripes, because, you know, you are who you are. When Derek and this cat's popping off and Sean starts to get agitated and he starts to pull up on the seat. We're in an old Chevy S10 pickup truck, and so the seat, it flips forward, and tucked right behind me is an Uzi machine gun. And so Sean's trying to reach it now, and I'm pushing back on the seat saying, no, Sean, Derek, drive. We just trying to find this damn club, man. Help me out here. And nobody's paying attention to me, and I'm telling Sean we can't do it, because I know if Sean pulls that machine gun out, he will start shooting, and he won't stop until everybody's dead. That's just the way it is. And so I'm trying my best to keep it in check, and I know that he don't see me the same as he used to see me, because I'm not that guy anymore. I'm just some college dude that comes and hangs out with him now. And so I'm fighting him for this, and I guess this kid over here must think that maybe we praying together, we afraid of him. He don't know I'm trying to keep him alive, and so he escalates again. I got something for that little 38 of yours, man. And he backs up to the car, and his boy opens up the back door, and he reaches in. I know he's reaching for a shotgun. And the whole time, I'm thinking, I can't let Sean pull this gun, because he's going to kill everybody, and we're going to be on 11 o'clock news, and my mama's going to have to explain to the world how she had faith in these monsters. And my mama don't deserve that. And she don't need to come down to the jailhouse and talk behind 3 inches of plate glass. And then I start thinking, if this kid pulled a shotgun out, my mama sure as hell ain't coming down to the morgue tonight. So I stopped thinking, and I leaned up on the seat, and Sean pulled the Uzi out. If you've never heard the charging hound of an Uzi chamber that first round, it's a very distinct sound when it locks that round. And everything slowed down. And Sean levels the machine gun out the window right in front of me. And I can almost see, as everybody starts screaming, Uzi, Uzi, and everybody starts diving. And this kid who's reaching in, he comes out, and he turns, and he's facing us. And he's got his hands up, and he says, oh my God, please don't kill me, man. Please don't kill me. And all of a sudden, he like 14, maybe 15. And he's sitting here, and I'm looking straight down the barrel into his chest. And in my head, I'm saying, this ain't me. This ain't my fault. I'm not taking responsibility for it. I did everything I could do. I tried my best. Sometimes we got to do more than our best. We got to do what's necessary, right? And in the back of my head, I'm hearing all those voices that are going to say, yeah, monster, thug, trash, useless, predator. And right there at the back of it, this little bitty voice, clear as a bell, saying, baby, if you could see what I see when I look at you, then you would know how great you really were. And I got up the courage to reach for that man my mama been looking at one more time. And I grabbed the barrel, And I turned to my brother and I said, well, he took his finger off the trigger. And I turned to this kid screaming. I said, lay down, boy. And you thank God I'm not the man I was 2 years ago, because what you just put me through, you would never see the sun rise again. And we peel out of there and we drive for about a mile and nobody's breathing. And we finally get to a little street and we do that nervous giggle you do when you're too tough to cry. You know. And we found the club. And I went in and my sisters and my youngest brother Tony and my mom and my father were there. And my mom gives me this look like she know something wasn't right. That's a good night. And the next morning I got up and I packed everything I owned in my mama's house. And I gave her a kiss. And I said, I will not be back until I see the man you see when I look in the mirror. The single hardest decision I'd ever made in my life to that point. It was that voice. It was the voice of all those people like Dr. Lorraine who said, I think that you are great and all you can do is make me a liar. That I believe in you in spite of the things I know about you because I understand the possibility. See, those were voices like your voices. Because those were people like you who stand in this fight, who wear this heavy armor, who swing this big sword because you know the possibility. You understand what could happen. There are no guarantees here. I understand that. You need to understand that you don't have to guarantee me a future. You just have to guarantee that if I'm brave enough to get up and start running, one of y'all going to be at the finish line to help me celebrate. That's all we need. We need to shore ourselves up and we need to get ready for the fight. We do this together. I am here and proud to have the opportunity to do this incredible work because it gives me a chance to walk among the champions who stood for me without knowing me. We can't give up now. We can't back down. We have an opportunity to take this out a whole other door. But we have to tweak it, right? Because if we keep doing what we've been doing, we're going to keep getting what we've been getting. And these results are okay results, but they are not the results we deserve for the work you put in. And so it's time to get more creative. It's time to redouble our efforts and to push a little harder and to try some things different. You know, it's all, I wanted to show you all this. And I've been looking at it for like 10 minutes, like, you know, I brought that blue rag down. I'm sorry, I win again. So y'all here, y'all caught up? Okay. Sometimes I got to slow down to recognize that people are like, wait a minute. So when I was on tour, when I was telling York's story, I had a chance to tell York's story as part of the National Lewis and Clark ceremony for 200 years, the bicentennial. I was actually York for the national, the Department of, I got to be York for the whole nation for 4 years, all the way out from Virginia, all the way out to Oregon and back. And so when I was in Idaho, we got Idaho people in the house? I like that calendar you all have. But so I was in Idaho for a long time, and you all can attest to me, there ain't a whole lot to do in some places in Idaho. I was in Kamiah and Salmon and some of those places. Whoo, right? And so I'd found a Walmart, which I'm pretty familiar with. And Walmart became my place because sometimes that'd be the only place open 24 hours, and I don't sleep a lot, so I wander around. And one day I was wandering around Walmart, and I walked into the fabric section. You know, I was looking around, looking at what kind of stuff people were making stuff out of. You know how you try. I don't do it all the time, okay? But sometimes that's the only place you got left, and so you do it, and you walk around. And there was a table in there called the discard table, the throwaway table. Don't nobody want this table. And so there was one piece of fabric nicely folded and sit on a discard table and had a price tag at $1. I was like, man, that is sad. It's like the single most unwanted piece of fabric in the state of Idaho, right? And so I'm like, I got to buy it. And so I bought it. And so since then, I've been going around trying to justify spending $1 on this, right? You know, it's funny, I asked a kid once, I was talking to a group of young people, and I was like, you know, y'all give me some ideas. And that dude say, you could probably take 50 cents for it and cut your losses like the government. I was like, man, that is wrong. So, but I always take it around, I always ask people if they give me suggestions. If you had this, what kind of things could you do with this right now to do something with it? Any cool things, any thoughts? Just shout them out. Oh, this would be a good belt. Yeah, you know, right? Be like, hey, right? What else? A scarf I heard, and I heard a headband. So I'll do a scarf first. You got to do it right. Right? If I had a little piece of jewelry, I call it an ascot, right? From Target, right? And then a headband, right? You know, you put a little headband, a little band on. What's up, man? Right? What else? A cape. Oh, I love that. You know, he said a cape. You know, I used to, you saw Spider-Man, so you know I like superheroes. When I was a kid, I loved comic books. That's how I learned how to read, being dyslexic, is that I could do picture word association. So, you know, one of the things that helped me is that, you know, I would read these comics and I could try to figure out what the heroes were saying. But what I like about capes, you ever notice when people put capes on, their voices change? They start to say words like, just capes are cool. What else? A turban. This could be a turban. You know, I don't know how to. I grew up in the Nation of Islam, and so I actually wore a turban for a while, and it was pretty cool because me and my two brothers always got to be the three wise men in the Christmas play. It wasn't until years later I realized that it was just a little odd, but it was pretty cool because that's when my acting career started, right? People were like, oh man, you got a turban head. I said, wait a minute, I got myrrh, I got frankincense, and you goat number 3, come on, right? And so a turban is good. What else? Good towel, yeah. Ooh, that was a good pool, right? They got a nice pool here. What else? An apron. This could be a good apron. You know, Texas is like barbecue, y'all, right? Okay. What else? A skirt. That'd be like apron. Skirt's like, I'm just saying, okay? Right? You know, or how about a sling? You ever know when people go to the dentist, they always tie their head up? I don't know what it is about their head that makes their teeth hurt, but they do it. So, you know, the truth is, this is a plain old piece of cloth I bought from the Walmart store in Idaho. Kids ask me all the time, Mr. Davis, how come you spend a whole $1 on that? And I tell them, I don't know. All I can know is that when I saw it on that table, all by itself, I felt something. Because I know what it's like to be on the don't nobody want you table. Our kids know what it's like to be on the don't nobody want you table. But did you see what happened when we put our imagination to it? When we took a couple of minutes and we took the time, this became infinitely possible. That is the gift we have for our children, to not see them as they are, but to see them with all the possibility that they bring. This is our work. I want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of the world that you serve and the opportunity to be in this great conversation. God bless you and keep fighting. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.